This is Not Me podcast.
This is Vlad, and today we deep dive to this topic.
Okay, yes, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into the Anthropic Economic Index report today. And it paints, well, a really startling picture of frontier AI adoption. The speed, the patterns. It's unlike anything we've really seen.
It really is. It's an essential piece of research, I think, because the sheer velocity it describes, it challenges almost every, historical model we have for how major technologies filter into the economy and the workforce.
It's not a slow burn, is it? It's more like a shockwave, as you put it.
Exactly.
A shockwave.
And the headline numbers are, well, they're kind of staggering when you put them against history. The report's saying 40% of U.S. employees are now using AI at work. 40%.
And that's doubled in just 2 years. It was only 20% back in 2023. That kind of acceleration was the core story here.
It really is. And you immediately start thinking, okay, what's the comparison? What does history tell us? And the answer seems to be not much compares to the speed. Right. Everything else looks almost glacial. Take the internet, arguably the biggest shift many of us have lived through. That took about 5 years to hit the same 40% adoption rate that AI just managed in 2.
5 years versus 2. So less than half the time. That's already a huge compression.
It is. And if you go back further, it becomes almost comical. Personal computers, 20 years. It took 2 decades for PCs to reach the majority of U.S. homes. 20 years for that level of penetration.
20 years versus 2 for AI in the workplace. And something even more fundamental, like electricity.
Oh, electricity is the classic example. You're talking over 30 years, 3 decades, for it to become widespread on farms, and that was long after it had already hit the cities and factories.
Right. And there's an obvious reason for some of that difference, isn't there? The physical infrastructure.
Precisely. Electricity needed wires, power plants. Computers needed hardware, distribution networks, huge physical lifts.
But AI.
Yeah.
It's largely digital. It rides on existing internet infrastructure.
Exactly. It can be deployed, updated, scaled at, almost the speed of light. That digital nature fundamentally changes the character of the adoption curve. It's not just steeper, it's different.
But what's fascinating, and what the report really digs into, is that even with this incredible speed, one core principle of early tech adoption still holds true.
Which is?
Concentration. It clusters. It doesn't spread evenly at first. It concentrates in certain places, certain geographies, and it concentrates in certain types of tasks within the economy. It finds its niches first.
And tracking that concentration is absolutely vital if you want to understand the potential economic impacts, the risks, the opportunities. Where does it land first and what does it do there?
Which really sets up our mission for this deep dive. This Anthropic report gives us a pretty unique window because it uses both the consumer-facing Claude.ai data, what individuals are doing,
right,
and importantly, for the first time, they're including enterprise API data, so how businesses are systematically deploying it.
That comparison is gold.
It is. So our goal here is to pull out the key insights. Where is AI adoption concentrated geographically? What specific tasks are people and businesses using it for? And, maybe the most crucial part, how are they using it? Is it delegation automation or is it collaboration augmentation? And how does that differ between us as individuals and, big companies?
And the big takeaway, the thread that runs through the whole report, is that the long-term economic story here isn't just about how good the AI models get. It's really going to be defined by how this adoption diffuses, or maybe how it fails to diffuse across the whole global economy.
Fails to diffuse. That's a critical point.
It is, because what we might be seeing, what the data suggests, is the stage being set for potentially massive economic divergence, widening gaps on a scale we haven't really reckoned with in decades.
Okay, let's start digging into that evidence. Section 1. How are consumers actually using these tools, and how has that changed over time?
Right. This looks at Claude.ai usage over about 8 months, from the V1 release to V3. A short period, but because things move so fast, it shows real evolution.
And the headline finding here is a divergence, a shift in what people are using it for.
Exactly. We're seeing a pretty clear move away from some of the more traditional, maybe straightforward business admin tasks, and a big lean into things that are more knowledge-intensive, more synthesis-heavy.
So what's growing and what's shrinking?
Well, computer and mathematical tasks, like coding, they're still the biggest chunk overall, around 37%. pretty steady, but the growth leaders are really telling.
Okay.
Educational tasks surged. They went from about 9.3% of usage with V1 up to 12.7% with V3. That's a significant jump.
Wow. Yeah. Education.
And scientific tasks, think life sciences, physical sciences, social sciences, they also saw a steady climb from 6.3% up to 7.4%.
So learning, research, synthesis, things that require pulling together complex information.
Precisely. It really suggests that users quickly figured out the models are good at reasoning, explaining, and synthesizing information, especially public knowledge. These aren't just simple lookup tasks, they involve a degree of intellectual effort.
And what's getting less usage then? Where's the decline?
That's where you see the traditional corporate functions taking a hit. Business and financial operations, think bookkeeping, scheduling, basic financial analysis, that share fell sharply from 6% down to just 3.1%, cut almost in half.
Wow. And management tasks.
Similar story, dropped from 5.9% down to 2.7%, again more than halved.
So why that divergence? Why are education and science booming while basic business and management tasks are falling off, relatively speaking?
That's a fantastic question. The report suggests, and I think this makes sense, that maybe those traditional business operations are just stickier. They often rely on internal proprietary data.
Right. Data that's not easily accessible to a public-facing AI.
Exactly. Or they involve legacy systems, or they need approvals, consensus within the company. You can't just ask Claude to overhaul the company's budget process single-handedly.
Whereas a student writing an essay or a researcher exploring a scientific concept,
They can leverage publicly available knowledge much more directly and immediately. The friction is lower. So it points to this idea that the AI's reasoning power might be diffusing faster where the knowledge base is open compared to the more closed, complex environments inside many businesses.
that makes a lot of sense. The constraint isn't just the AI, it's the environment it's operating in.
Absolutely. And that diffusion is also being actively shaped by new features. The tools get better, and people immediately change how they use them.
Yeah, the report has some great examples of this, like the web search feature.
Oh, that's a perfect one. When web search rolled out in March, tasks related to searching electronic sources basically went from almost nothing, 0.03%, up to nearly 0.5%, 0.49%.
A 16-fold increase practically overnight.
It shows the pent-up demand for grounded, real-time information. People wanted the AI to access the current web.
And then the research mode feature in April.
Similar effect. You saw tasks related to internet-based research jump significantly too, from basically 0 to 0.27%. The moment a trusted, structured way to do research was offered, users grabbed it.
It's like latent demand being unlocked by the right feature. You also see it in specific user groups, right? Like educators.
Yeah, educators really seem to latch onto it. The report highlights tasks for developing instructional materials, lesson plans, worksheets, explanations. That usage went up over 6 times, from 0.2% to 1.5%.
That's a specific high-value use case for them. Saves time, helps them focus elsewhere.
Exactly. Find a repetitive, high-value task the AI can handle well, and adoption spikes in that community.
But maybe the most interesting story here about features and behavior is what happened with coding.
Ah, yes, the coding shift. This is really fascinating because it's not just about doing coding tasks, but how they're doing them. It points towards increasing trust in the model.
The report calls it a shift from correction towards creation. Explain that.
Okay, so over the V1 to V3 period, there was a net shift of about 7.4 percentage points in how coding tasks were done. What drove that shift?
More creation.
Exactly. The share of tasks involving creating entirely new code more than doubled. It jumped from 4.1% up to 8.6%.
Doubled. And that gain had to come from somewhere.
It came directly from tasks related to fixing errors, debugging code, correcting mistakes in the AI's output. That share fell quite a bit, from 16.1% down to 13.3%.
So people are spending less time fixing the AI's mistakes.
Which strongly suggests the AI is making fewer mistakes, or at least fewer significant ones. The initial quality of the code generated is getting better, more reliable.
Which means users can trust that first output more. They don't have to constantly act like a quality control supervisor for the AI.
Precisely. They can delegate the creation task more confidently and move on to the next step, instead of getting bogged down in debugging loops.
That idea of delegation versus collaboration is a perfect segue into the next big shift they found in consumer usage, the balance between automation and augmentation.
Right. This is a really important framework the report uses. They define 2 main ways people interact with AI.
Let's break those down. Automation first.
Automation is basically about delegation. Getting the AI to do a task for you with minimal back and forth. This includes directive conversations, just telling the AI what to do, like write me a summary of this article,
Okay.
or feedback loops where you delegate, the AI does it, and you provide specific corrections to refine the output. Still primarily delegation.
Got it. And augmentation.
Augmentation is more collaborative. It's using the AI as a partner. Maybe it's helping you learn something new, brainstorm ideas, iterate on a task together, validate your thinking. It's about enhancing your capabilities, not just replacing a task.
So delegation versus partnership, what's the trend?
The trend is clear, and it's moving fast towards automation. Those directive conversations, the simple, pure delegation, they shot up from 27% of interactions with V1 to 39% with V3.
Wow. From about a quarter to nearly 2/5. That's a huge jump in just 8 months.
Yeah.
People are increasingly just telling the AI what to do.
They are. And this marks a really crucial tipping point identified in the report series. For the first time, automation usage now exceeds augmentation usage among consumers.
So more often than not, people using Claude.ai are looking to offload a task rather than collaborate on one.
That appears to be the dominant pattern now. Get it done quickly and efficiently.
But let's pause on what that rise in automation really means. The report offers two interpretations, right? And they have very different implications for the future of work.
Exactly. This is where it gets really important for thinking about policy and individual careers. Interpretation A is perhaps the more straightforward, maybe worrying one.
Which is?
That the models are simply getting better. They can now reliably automate a wider range of tasks, including more complex ones. If the AI can do more tasks that humans used to do, that directly increases the risk of labor displacement. Fewer human hours needed.
Okay, that's the substitution story. What's interpretation B?
Interpretation B focuses on the human side of the equation, user learning. It suggests that people, especially adaptable workers, are getting better at using the AI. They're learning how to effectively delegate the routine, lower-value parts of their jobs.
So they automate the grunt work to free themselves up.
Precisely. If they can successfully do that, they become much more productive. Their skills are now augmented by the AI, making them more valuable, potentially leading to higher demand for their labor and higher wages. They become complements to the AI, not direct competitors.
So it's a race between the AI getting better at automating tasks, displacement risk, and workers getting better at leveraging the AI augmentation benefit.
That's the core tension. Does worker adaptability outpace the automation capabilities of the technology? The answer to that question will shape the economic outcomes for millions of people. It's the key dynamic to watch.
Okay, fascinating dynamics on the consumer side. Now let's zoom out, as you said earlier, and look at the map. Section 2, the uneven geography of AI adoption. This is where things get really uneven, really fast.
They really do. If you just look at the raw usage numbers where most of the interactions are coming from, it looks kind of predictable based on population.
Right, the U.S. dominates, accounting for about 21.6% of global usage. Then you see big countries like India at 7.2%, Brazil at 3.7%.
And if you stopped there, you'd think, okay, it's mainly happening in these huge population centers, but that's misleading.
Because it doesn't account for the size of the workforce in those countries.
Exactly. So the report introduces a really neat metric to adjust for that, the Anthropic AI Usage Index, or AUI.
Okay, how does the AUI work?
It's simple but powerful. You take a country's share of global Claude usage and divide it by that country's share of the global working age population.
So usage relative to workforce size.
Precisely. An AUI greater than 1 means the country is using AI more than you'd expect based on its population size. An AUI less than 1 means it's using it less.
It's like usage density, not just total usage.
Perfect analogy. And when you look at the AUI rankings, the picture changes dramatically. It highlights this incredible concentration in small, tech-savvy nations.
Who's at the top?
The undisputed leader, by a significant margin, is Israel. Its AUI is 7.0.
7 times the expected usage based on its working age population. That's huge.
It's staggering. After Israel, you get Singapore at 4.57x and Australia at 4.0x. These aren't the biggest economies, but per capita, they are the most intensive adopters.
Where does the U.S. fall on this index, given its high raw usage?
The U.S. is still high at 3.62x, but clearly behind those smaller, hyper-adopting nations.
So what's driving this? Why Israel, Singapore, Australia? Is it just about being wealthy?
Wealth is definitely a major factor. The report finds a strong correlation between AUI and GDP per working age capita.
How strong?
A 1% increase in GDP per capita is associated with about a 0.7% increase in Claude usage per capita. So richer countries adopt more intensively.
Which makes sense. Wealth enables the digital infrastructure, the high levels of education and technical skills, the types of industries that can leverage AI early.
Absolutely. But this strong income correlation leads directly to that divergence risk we mentioned earlier.
Right. If the productivity benefits from AI flow mainly to where adoption is highest, these already wealthy, high AUI countries, what happens to everyone else?
They risk falling further behind and potentially quite rapidly. Look at the low-income economies in the index. India's AUI is only 0.27x. Nigeria's is 0.2x. Usage is incredibly low relative to their large populations.
So if the gains stack up in the high AUI countries, the existing global economic inequality could get significantly worse, accelerated by AI.
That's the major concern highlighted by this geographic pattern. Instead of technology acting as a leveler, helping poorer countries leapfrog, this specific technology, at least in its current adoption phase, seems to be reinforcing, even amplifying existing disparities.
It feels like a pattern we've seen before with other major tech shifts, maybe.
You could argue it echoes things like electrification or early industrial machinery, where the massive capital investment required favored nations that were already wealthy. AI requires digital infrastructure, yes, but also significant human capital investment education, skills, which again favors richer nations.
Let's bring this down to the national level, within the U.S. Because even within one wealthy country, the report finds surprising variations. It's not evenly spread at all.
Not at all. The per capita leaders within the U.S. are fascinating.
Yep.
Washington, D.C. leads the pack with an AUI of 3.82x.
D.C., ahead of California.
Ahead of California.
Yeah.
And right behind D.C. is Utah at 3.78x.
Utah. Okay, that's genuinely surprising.
It is. Both D.C. and Utah significantly outpace the places you might automatically assume would lead, like California, which is at 2.13x, and New York at 1.58x.
So the heart of government and, well, what explains Utah? Tech scene there, specific industries.
It seems to be about the type of work being done. The report finds that income alone explains less than half the variation across U.S. states.
Less than half. So it's not just wealth driving adoption within the U.S.
No. It strongly suggests that local factors, especially the mix of occupations in a state's economy, matter more. D.C. has policy, legal, regulatory work. Utah has a growing tech sector, Silicon Slopes, finance, and specific service industries. These seem to be hitting an AI sweet spot earlier than perhaps the broader, more diverse economies of California or New York.
And you could see this local flavor reflected in what people in different states are actually asking the AI to do, right?
Absolutely. The report breaks down task usage by location using this really detailed taxonomy of requests, and the differences are striking.
Give us some examples. D.C.
In D.C., you see much higher usage for things like document editing, help with job applications, and career advice. Help with job applications specifically is almost twice as common there, 1.84x is the U.S. average. Makes sense for a city focused on professional and government roles.
Okay, California. Predictable.
That's somewhat predictable, yeah. Disproportionately high use for IT support, digital marketing help, even basic numerical tasks. Reflects the tech industry's needs.
And Florida. You mentioned Florida earlier.
Florida's interesting. It shows higher relative usage for things like sports training and fitness guidance, but also for comprehensive business consulting. A unique mix reflecting its demographics and economy.
It's like the AI becomes a mirror reflecting the local economic DNA.
That's a great way to put it. Now, if we zoom back out internationally, this idea of task specialization links back to the AUI levels.
How so?
There's a pattern in task diversity. In the lower adoption, lower AUI countries, usage is incredibly focused primarily on coding.
Like India, you mentioned.
Exactly. In India, coding and debugging make up something like 5 of the top 5 request types. Over half of all usage is concentrated there. Globally, coding is maybe a third.
So in emerging economies, the first beachhead for AI seems to be software development, maybe because it's a globally traded service, standardized.
That seems likely. It's the most obvious, scalable, maybe lowest hanging fruit for automation or augmentation. But in the high AUI regions, Israel, Singapore, Australia, the US, you see much more diverse applications.
They're using it across the board.
Much more so. Education, science, a wider range of business tasks, creative tasks. It suggests that as adoption matures, the use cases broaden out significantly beyond just coding.
Which brings us to a really counterintuitive finding about how these different regions use AI, the automation versus augmentation thing again.
Yes, this one really makes you think. We established the global consumer trend is towards automation. But the report controls for the task mix, like it accounts for the fact that India does a lot of coding. And even after that adjustment,
The result flips.
it kind of flips the initial assumption. The high AUI countries, the Israels and Singapores, actually tend to use AI more for augmentation.
Wait, the most advanced adopters are using it more collaboratively, not just for delegation. I
Yeah.
thought automation was the end goal for efficiency.
That's the paradox, isn't it? It suggests that in these highly advanced economies with strong human capital and complex industries, the AI isn't primarily seen as a substitute for workers doing simple tasks.
So how are they seeing it?
It seems they're viewing it more as a tool to scale expertise, to help their already skilled workforce learn faster, iterate on complex problems, validate sophisticated ideas. It's being deployed as a high-level cognitive partner.
While the lower AUI countries are more focused on.
They tend, even after controlling for task, to lean more towards automation, pure task delegation. Get the coding task done, get the summary written.
So maybe different stages of economic or technological maturity lead to different deployment strategies. Early stage is automate the simple stuff. Later stage is augment the complex stuff.
That's a very plausible interpretation.
Absolutely.
It suggests local economic context, maybe even cultural factors, heavily influence how AI is integrated. And it could mean the high AUI countries using augmentation might actually accelerate their lead even further by making their top talent even more productive.
Wow. Okay, that difference between augmentation in high AUI nations and the overall consumer shift towards automation sets the stage perfectly for the final section.
Yeah.
How are businesses systematically deploying AI? This is the API data.
Exactly. We shift from individuals using a web interface to companies integrating AI programmatically into their core processes. And first, let's just set the scene. Overall, business adoption in the U.S. is still relatively low, remember?
Right. The report cited 9.7% of U.S. firms using AI as of August 2025. Growing fast, but still early days overall.
Very early. Though the information sector is way ahead, about 1 in 4 businesses that are using it. But this API data gives us a glimpse into those early, serious business deployments.
And how does API usage differ from the consumer usage we've discussed?
It's much more focused, much more utilitarian. Task specialization is even more intense. Computer and mathematical tasks jump from 36% on the consumer side to 44% via API.
Okay, even more coding and tech focus. What else stands out?
Office and administrative support tasks also see a significant jump in share through the API, around 10%. Think automating routine office work, data entry, scheduling, standard communications, things ripe for system integration.
And what gets de-emphasized in the business context?
The more exploratory or personal tasks plummet. Education, arts, life, physical, social sciences, these have much, much smaller shares in API usage compared to consumer usage. Businesses are using it to solve specific operational problems, not for general learning or creativity.
Makes sense. What are the killer apps, the dominant use cases for the API right now?
Software development is king, even more so than for consumers. Debugging, building web apps, fixing technical problems, that's the bulk of it.
Anything particularly niche or surprising within that?
Yes, one really interesting specialization. About 5% of all API traffic is focused on using AI to help develop and evaluate other AI systems.
AI building AI, the feedback loop.
Exactly, using the tool to refine the tool itself and related systems. But the single biggest, most crucial difference between consumer and enterprise use, it's the overwhelming dominance of automation in the business world.
We saw consumers tipping towards automation, maybe 50-50 or 60-40. What does it look like for businesses using the API?
It's not even close. 77% of API transcripts show clear automation patterns.
77%. 3/4 plus. That's compared to roughly half for consumers.
And if you look at it task by task, it's even more stark. For API usage, 97% of the tasks are dominated by automation patterns.
And 97%.
They're-
So almost every type of task businesses are doing via API, they are primarily delegating, not collaborating.
That's what the data shows. It's a fundamental difference in approach. Individuals might explore and learn. Businesses are integrating AI primarily to execute tasks efficiently and systematically.
And the implications of that are huge, right? This isn't just about individual productivity boosts anymore.
No, this is about embedding automation deep within organizational workflows. It likely means faster, larger productivity gains for the companies that do it successfully.
Yeah.
But it also carries a much greater, more direct risk of significant labor market disruption. We're talking about potentially displacing entire roles or departments whose functions become automated through these integrated systems. It's automation by design at scale.
Which brings up the cost. Surely businesses are watching the cost of these API calls. They must be price sensitive.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But the data shows something really surprising. Businesses seem remarkably insensitive to the marginal cost of the API calls, at least currently.
Insensitive. How so?
There's actually a positive correlation between task cost and usage frequency.
Wait, the more expensive tasks are used more? That seems backwards.
It does, but consider this. Computer and mathematical tasks, which dominate API usage, cost about 50% more per interaction than, say, simple sales-related tasks. Yet, businesses are pouring resources into the more expensive coding tasks.
Why? What does that tell us?
It tells us they're prioritizing capability and value over marginal cost. What matters most is, can the AI reliably do this complex, high-value task? How easy is it to integrate? And what's the overall economic benefit of automating it?
So the token cost is peanuts compared to the value of successfully automating, say, a complex piece of software development or a major data analysis task.
Exactly. The potential return on investment from successful automation, especially for high-skilled tasks, dwarfs the immediate API expense. Capability trumps cost, for now.
Okay, so capability is key. Cost isn't a major barrier yet,
Mm?
but the report identifies another bottleneck, something potentially much harder to solve for complex tasks. The context constraint.
Ah, yes. This is a really sophisticated point, and it shifts the focus from the AI model itself to the organization using it.
Explain the context constraint.
Look, for AI to handle really complex, nuanced business tasks, think refactoring a tangled legacy codebase, or developing a multi-year strategic plan, or ensuring compliance across a complex global supply chain, it needs a ton of background information.
It needs context, documents, data, history, rules.
Precisely, often resulting in very, very long inputs fed into the model. You have to give it the whole picture to get a meaningful, complex output.
So does giving it more context reliably lead to proportionally better output?
There's a strong relationship, yes. More context generally yields longer, more detailed output. But, and this is a crucial finding, it shows strongly diminishing returns. The report measured the input-output elasticity.
Elasticity.
Yeah, how much the output length changes for a given change in input length. They found the elasticity is only 0.38.
0.38. What does that mean in plain English?
It means if you increase the amount of context you give the AI by 1%, the length or detail of the useful output you get back only increases by 0.38%.
So you have to feed it exponentially more context to get linear improvements in the output.
You got it. Doubling the input doesn't come close to doubling the useful output for these complex tasks. There's a bottleneck in how effectively the model can synthesize and utilize vast amounts of context.
And the implication for businesses trying to automate really complex work.
The bottleneck might not actually be the AI's core intelligence. The real bottleneck might be the company's ability to find, gather, organize, and feed the AI all that necessary context in a usable format.
So it's about the data.
It's about the data, but also the knowledge. The tacit knowledge stuck in employees' heads. The data scattered across incompatible legacy systems. The information buried in unstructured documents. If a company can't wrangle all that and make it machine-readable context,
Then the AI can't effectively automate the complex task, even if it's technically capable.
exactly. It highlights a massive challenge, data modernization. Companies might need huge, costly projects just to structure their internal information before they can even begin to leverage AI for their most complex, high-value automation goals. The AI might be ready, but the organizational data often isn't.
Okay, that's a sobering but critical point about the practical limits right now.
Yep.
Let's try to synthesize all this. We've covered a
We
lot.
have, and a clear picture emerges.
Two main things stand out to me. First, the unprecedented speed, coupled with this really uneven geographic spread, heavily correlated with income. Richer nations, specific regions within nations, are adopting much faster and more intensively.
Definitely. Concentration is key.
And second, this stark difference between consumer usage, which is shifting towards automation but still mixed, and enterprise API usage, which is just overwhelmingly systematically focused on automation and delegation.
That consumer enterprise split and the geographic split really point towards the core theme, the risk of divergence.
Right. If the productivity gains pile up mainly in those high-income, high AUI regions and within specific sectors like tech and information.
And if businesses are primarily focused on automation that displaces rather than augments labor.
Then the result seems likely to be a widening of existing inequalities, both globally between nations and potentially domestically between different types of workers and industries.
That's the clear risk profile emerging from these patterns. The benefits might not lift all boats. They might actually make the fastest boats speed even further ahead.
And the implications for the labor market seem really complex, almost contradictory based on what we discussed.
They are nuanced. On one side, the heavy enterprise focus on automation absolutely points towards job substitution, especially for roles heavy on routine, codifiable tasks. The report even hints at some early negative employment signals for entry-level workers in AI-exposed fields.
So risk for entry-level routine jobs, but what about the other side, that context constraint?
That's the potential counterbalancing force. Remember, complex automation needs complex context. Who holds that context? Often, it's experienced workers with deep tacit knowledge of the company, the processes, the legacy systems.
So those experienced workers might actually become more valuable.
They could become critical complements to the AI. Their ability to structure the problem, provide the right context, vet the AI's output based on deep domain knowledge, that becomes a premium skill.
So you could see demand and wages potentially rising for experienced workers who can effectively partner with and guide the AI, even as entry-level roles face substitution pressure.
That's the potential dynamic. A hollowing out, perhaps, where routine tasks are automated, but high-level expertise combined with AI integration skills becomes even more critical.
It's a complex picture,
Yeah.
and as you said, the path isn't fixed. Policy choices will matter, organizational strategies will matter enormously.
Absolutely. How companies choose to deploy AI purely for automation or also for augmentation, and how governments support worker transitions and skill development will shape which future we get.
Which brings us to the final thought for you, the listener. Given everything we've discussed, especially that context bottleneck for complex enterprise AI, what investments does your organization, or even you personally, need to make right now? Is it in data structure? Is it in capturing that tacit knowledge from experienced heads? Is it in training people to work with AI, not just be replaced by it? How do you prepare to effectively and beneficially deploy these incredibly powerful tools in your own world? We'll definitely keep tracking these patterns in our next deep dive.